Hello class, welcome to Advanced Engineering Physics or ES12, and today's topic is about processes and cycles. So whenever one or more of the properties of the system change, we say that a change in state has occurred. So before we go deeper on the example of the processes, let's first define what is process. So process is the path of the succession of states through which the system passes. The succession of states through which the system passes. Now, muna siya ginatawag og process. Now, let's have here an example. So we have here a weights, no? So when the weights of the piston is removed, the piston rises. No? Kung nabantayan ninyo, as the weight of the piston mas nagkagamay or padung as i-remove, then the piston rises. So the change of the state occurs because for that the pressure is if the pressure decreases, then the specific volume increases. No? So kung magkadako ang weights, pag push niya, so magkadako ang weights, and then ang pressure niya nagkadako. So the volume or the specific volume is mas lesser, no? While if the pressure is decreasing, then the specific volume increases. So now let us consider the equilibrium of a system as it undergoes a change in state. So the moment the weight is removed from the piston, the mechanical equilibrium does not exist. No? As a result, the piston is moved upward kasi wala pa man siya nag mechanically equilibrium. No? So munang nag-move pa siya upward. And then as a result, if the piston is moved upward until the mechanical equilibrium is restored and it stops. No? So the moment na nag-stop si equilibrium, si piston o rise or upward, no, or moved upward, then it is in mechanical equilibrium na. So if we can say that it is in mechanical equilibrium at the state nga ni-stop na siya, so what can we call of that the entire process nga wala pa siya in equilibrium? No? So let's have here a question. Since the properties describe the states of a system only when it is in equilibrium, di ba? Unya na ta makaingon nga ang unsayang state when it is in equilibrium. So how can we describe the state of a system during a process if the actual process occurs only when equilibrium does not exist? No? Remember, ang process, nahitabo ang process kay dili pa siya in equilibrium. No? But kung nana siya sa equilibrium, then we can say na, oh, nana siya nga state. Right? So what can we describe the state during the process? Muna siya ang question. No? So if the weights of the piston are small and are taken off one by one, again, if dili siya abrupt pagkuha, no? One by one lang nimo gipahinay-hinay nimo og kuha ang weight sa piston, then that could be considered as a quasi-equilibrium process. And so, however, if the weights of the piston was removed at once, so the piston rises abruptly, no? So, or rise rapidly until it hits the stop. So, but first, let's us define first what is quasi-equilibrium, na? Para dili magsagol. Quasi-equilibrium process is one in which the deviation from thermodynamic equilibrium is infinitesimal, and all the states the system passes through during the quasi-equilibrium process may be considered equilibrium state. So therefore, if you were if ginahinay ra natukuha ang weights, then it could be considered as equilibrium states. No? But if i-direct na to siya kuha ang weights, so katong abrupt og rise or rapidly rises ang piston, then that is not in equilibrium state. That is in non-equilibrium process. No? So when we say non-equilibrium processes, we are limited to a description of the system before the process occurs and after the process is completed and when the equilibrium is restored. No? So we are unable to specify each state through which the system passes or the rate at which the process occurs. No? So we are unable to specify. However, as we will see later, we are able to describe a certain overall effects that occur during the process. So, bisan dili nato siya ma-specify unsa siya nga state, but still we were be able to describe a certain effect during the process. No? So, several processes are described by the fact that the property remains constant. So that is where the ISO is being produced, no? Where the prefix ISO, no, used to describe such processes katong naa gihapoy property nga nag-remains constant during the process. So an example with that one is an isothermal process, which is the constant temperature from the word thermal. We also have isobaric process where it is a constant pressure process, and the isochloric process, which is the constant volume processes. But don't worry about those iso prefixes because we will go deeply on that on the next topics. So when a system is a given initial state, goes a number of different changes, then that could be lead to a cycle. No? So let's define cycle. Cycle is when the system in a given initial state goes through a number of different changes of state or processes and finally returns to its initial state. Again, if it returns to initial state, then the system has undergone a cycle. So if ever wala siya ni-return, then that's not a cycle. No? So therefore, the conclusion of a cycle is that all properties have the same value they had at the beginning. So kung ano yung value initially, then if it goes through a process and then goes back to the initial state, then that's undergone a cycle. So I hope na nasabtan na si process and cycle. So that would be for this topic, and see you at the next topic, which is the specific volume and density.